everyone. Good afternoon. It's your girl that's in a little call. I'm coming to you straight out of NYC, Harlem, to be exact, on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. And what I'm going to be talking about is the 30th anniversary of one of the most iconic albums to come out of hip-hop and R&B, which is Mary J. Blige, What's the 411, which today celebrates its 30th anniversary because it was released on this day, on a Tuesday, July 28, 1992. Whether you remember where you were when this album made its debut, I know that I was in summer camp. I was about to turn 9 years old. I was more than likely either going to go to the beach or go to the pool at John Jay College. That's where we used to go to pool at day camp. And I was having a time of my life that summer. I was just loving everything about the world. And I was actually really becoming very much close to really absorbing really Black history, but also Black American culture. I'm going to talk about a story time about how I was when I was 5, 6 years old. So you can get an understanding of why I mentioned that. But that summer, I would just listen all day and watch BET all day, which I always did. I always watched BET, even when I was 3, 4 years old. But I was always glued to the screen whenever Mary J. Blige would come on. So at that time, in July of 1992, Mary J. Blige is You Remind Me, and also Real Love was being played on the radio, but You Remind Me was being played in heavy rotation on BET's Video Soul, Video Vibration, and also MTV. So I knew she was going to be big. I knew she was going to be a star and whatnot. And so because my grandmother was not going to go to the Wiz and buy the album, I had to rely on radio. And I remember hearing the album when I would go to the park in my neighborhood, because I lived right across the street from the park. I remember hearing the album when I would go to kids' parties, because let's be real, it's really adult parties. They just, promote it as a kids' party. And also when I was going to places like 125th Street, even Broadway, even Midtown. And Midtown in those days was what we call lily white, meaning like they wasn't really promoting Black culture at all. It was just white. And maybe, a little bit of like Asian here and there. But Mary J. Blige at this time was 21 years old. As she was a young girl who was born in the Bronx, moved to slow bomb houses at the age of 12, 13, she moved there around like 1983. So she was 12 because she's born in January. So she was 12, more likely. So she was a girl who was a happy child when she was living in the Bronx. And they had to move to the projects because her father left her mom. And according to her bio, she went from being really happy to having to fight every day when she lived in slow bomb projects, which they call slow bomb because it was almost a violence, drug addiction, prostitution. It was a horrible place to live, but it was a horrible place even more to have a child grow up in that kind of environment. So she always had to fight every day, and she stopped smiling. But the one thing that basically rescued her and saved her soul was music. And when she was 16, she did drop out of school because the school system in Mount Vernon was horrible. Whereas in the Bronx, believe it or not, she was getting a better education. But the high schools there, it was just trash. So she was like, what's the point of staying here, going to school and you're not learning anything, where I could just be making money doing my music? So she started recording demos, even at the age of 16, 17, 18. And her demos ended up in the hands of a man, I believe his name is Jeff Redd. And he was signed to Uptown at that time. And so he gave it to Andre Harrell. And from there, her career started taking off. And she even did a feature on this song with Father MC, I'll Do For You, which was number 1. Now, at the time, I used to look at that video, but I didn't connect that it was her because she was featured and she had her hair pulled back and she was featured on it. But it wasn't until after seeing her on both You Remind Me of Real Love and then them showing the video again, like, hey, you know, this was the person that in 91 was featured on a song with Father MC. And it's like, oh my God, you were that girl. You're that girl that was, you know, featured on a song. And you could hear even then that she was going to be a star. You could just hear in her voice. Even though, like, her look was plain. And they probably did that on purpose to not really have her stand out as a lead. Because they just wanted her to appear like a feature. Because they do that in the business and stuff. So, when What's the 411 really dropped, already it was a number 1 album. By the fall, it had, we coming into October, it was already gold. It was already certified gold. They was playing every track of this album in New York radio stations, particularly Sweet Thing, Love No Limit. They were playing, and it was another song they was playing, My Love. They was playing My Love. They was playing songs that didn't even officially release. Sweet Thing never had a video, but it was a top 15 R&B song because radio stations played it and broke it. Had they made a video of that song, which they should have, I believe that Sweet Thing could have went number 1. And I remember back in the 4th grade, because this album was still in heavy rotation. That's when they were still playing Real Love on the radio. And Real Love was becoming number 1. And it was her first top 10 song on the Billboard Hot 100, which is the mainstream chart, which is what you call the pop charts. And then I heard this song in September of 92 when I was doing my homework. I'll never forget. I was doing my language arts homework. And I was doing my math homework. And I love 4th grade. And so I'm basically listening to Kiss FM. And I'm hearing this song. And it got this jazzy beat to it. And it's like, Love Without a Limit. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I love this song. I know this is Mary J. Blige. I just know her voice. Because at the time they didn't announce it. They just played it. And I said, Granny, you got to come here. You got to hear this. Now, Granny was familiar with her, my grandmother. And she was like, I like her voice. But Granny's love was Whitney Houston. And she really liked Mariah Carey and even Janet when it came to dancing, not vocals though. But my grandma heard it. My grandma was like, this is good. And I was like, this is Mary J. Blige. Like, don't you hear the jazz and the scatting? And my grandma like, yo, she is really, really a good singer. Now, reason why I mentioned my grandma is because I'm mentioning hip hop. And at this time, hip hop still wasn't accepted by people who were born in the silent generation or World War I babies. My grandmother was that. Children that was born like around the turn of the century, because many of them were still alive. And my grandmother was one of those people that she actually liked rap music, just not the rap that was vulgar with cursing and violence. But my grandmother loved Will Smith. She loved MC Hammer. And there was a couple others that she loved. And she loved Fat Boys. And she really liked Queen Latifah. She wasn't really too keen on MC Lyte. But she really even liked Salt and Pepper at one time. Until they did like the whole Very Necessary thing. But with Mary J. Blige, she really liked her a lot. Because she was like, she genuinely could sing. Even though her image wasn't of a typical R&B star. Meaning, Mary J. Blige didn't wear clothes like a Whitney Houston or Mariah Carey. She wasn't an evening gown singer when she first made her debut. She didn't wear her hair up or like really big. Mary J. Blige was the first R&B singer, female, to proudly sport tattoos. Okay? So when you see tattoos on women and stuff, particularly like R&B singers, that goes back to Mary J. Blige. Because before that, it was, statuettes, You're a Goddess, Superstar, Whitney, Mariah, because those women, they were influenced by the Aretha Franklins. They were influenced by people like Dionne Warwick. They was influenced by people of the 60s and even the 70s. So they wanted to look regal and glamorous. Not saying that Mary J. Blige didn't, because we know that Mary J. Blige definitely can blame glamour, and she has done so. But during the What's the 411 era, Mary J. Blige was wearing clothes like Carl Kanai. She was wearing polo. She was wearing, it wasn't high in fashion, but it was popular fashion that represented hip hop. And yes, she wore skirts. She even wore dresses here and there, but her style was very sexy. Like, if you look at the video for Real Love, she has on that bustier, but she also has on a white blazer, and she has a baseball cap, turned around. And you even see her with the Yankees jerseys on, with the sneakers, the bamboo earrings, and even the hair was urban. It wasn't, trying to be like glamour of Hollywood. It was like glamour of the hood. You understand? So her look itself, aesthetic, was really about, I'm representing women and girls who are in the inner cities of America that are trying to get out and make a way for themselves to survive. Whether it's through what I'm doing musically, business, education, whatnot, we got a goal to make it out the hood. That's who she represented. She didn't represent a fantasy like other R&B singers did who were females. Even Janet represented fantasy. But Mary represented a reality of what was going on in urban America during the Bush Senior era. Okay? Very important, because that era was riddled with drugs. The hoods were destroyed because of drugs. Going back to the 70s when Nixon opened, China, and the opium started just dropping. That's a whole nother story. But that whole thing devastated Black America horribly. Inner cities, bad. And Mary J. Blige was one of the people that got hurt from that. Her and her family. So when we saw Mary J. Blige, we saw somebody that we saw every day. Going to school, going to work, going to the store, going to church, going to the clubs, going to the park, going to the beach, the pool in the hood. We saw her. And that's what made people love her even more, is that she was genuine. She was real. Reality. And even in the music on the album, it wasn't like this fantasy love. A lot of her songs was like reality, of love that doesn't happen because of whatever reason, or we're together, but or we're going to stay together. It's not like, oh, I love you, I want to feel you, I love it. No. Because reality speaking, love isn't perfect. And that's what that album also touched on, I don't want to be with nobody else if loving you is all I have to do, My love. I mean, I could go on and on and on and do a deep dive on the What's the 411 album. Like, it's simple. It gets to the point, which is what I love about it. It's more upbeat. Unlike My Life. My Life, I love the My Life album. But if you're having a bad day, it's not the best album to listen to. Whereas 411 is very, it's blunt, but it's more upbeat, and I would say it's the message behind it. It's a more optimistic album. But I love My Life though. But the reason why I compared the two is because My Life is what cemented Mary J. Blige as someone who was going to be a superstar. Because that album sold 4 million copies to date. What's the 411 has sold 3 million to date, but during this promotion, it went double platinum. And I remember seeing the t-shirts advertised, the What's the 411 tour. I remember all the girls wanted to look like her. We all, even in fourth grade, us 9-year-olds, we wanted to look like her. I remember I wanted to color my hair the same way her hair was in Real Love. And You Remind Me. I was like, when I grow up, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it at 9 years old, I said, when I grow up, I'm going to wear my hair honey blonde. I'm going to color my hair in that reddish brown color. And I'm going to wear my hair with the bangs. And I'm going to use Dark and Lovely products. And I'm going to get my hair like Mary J. Blige. I didn't know it was a weave. I really thought that was her hair. I just want to make that claim. But I never used Dark and Lovely except for like the lotion and stuff like that. And the closest color I got to her hair was actually a reddish brown, but not like in You Remind Me. But I have worn my hair styled like that with the cut. I've done that in the videos, but it was just a fun time. 92. I mean, like, I felt more free as an 8-9-year-old around that time than I have as an adolescent teenager. And it was just a real happy time. And the only thing is, like, when you look back and be like, you were like imagining and couldn't wait to become an adult. And for us 80s children, we gotta be real. Adulthood has not really been good for us as a whole. I would say that the recession and the war in Iraq really did us dirty. And the drug wars, thanks to Biden, really, really messed us up. Also, I would say that when they declassified us as being part of Generation X and Y and created the term millennials, that was the worst thing, because it's really like making mockery of us. And I must also say that gentrification really did us in, because many of us who were kids in 92, many of us don't own homes. Many of us don't own vehicles. And I'm talking about those that live in the suburbs. Many of us don't have access to business loans because our credit has been messed up due to student loans, because we had to go to college to be able to get a job, which many of us did. We did the right things, but we're still paying out debt. We're the generation that's flooded in debt, okay? So we're not even able to really have the opportunities that people in Mary J. Blige's generation really did. If you look at those women who were like 21, even late 20s, that generation is very successful. Those people that are part of Generation X, which is if you're born from 65 to, I would say, 79, not really so much 80, even though they part of that, but I really don't believe that. Those people are very successful because they didn't have, even though they dealt with like crime, the war on drugs, but they were able to get out of poverty easier than our generation did. And that's like the whole thing with Mary J. Blige. Like, what she represented is just getting out of bad situations and making it happen. If you look at singers coming up from the 80s, like Keisha Cole, You can look at her. She's born in 81. She's classified as a millennial. She can't really make it really happen for her like Mary J. Blige did. And it's not just the attitude. It's because the music started getting gentrified to where, okay, we'll have you on the pop charts, but we're not going to really promote your albums like you should, because radio is being marginalized. So if you're not part of a certain group, we're not going to really promote you. So a lot of artists that came out in the 2000s, they didn't have the luxury of having a promotion like those from the 90s, because music started being gentrified. The gentrification messed us up. So with Mary J. Blige, she was around before we even heard the term gentrification. And that's a blessing for her and all of them that happened. But hopefully, now that we're on 30 years of this today, hopefully we can look at this and try to turn this tide around. And I had to mention that because it was something on my mind. And I really, really feel that if we, as a community, as Black people, if we weren't so quick to basically dismiss young people and to basically look out for them like other groups of people do, and I'm talking about the Blacks who are wealthy and who have and in power, I feel as though my generation as millennials, we would be successful. Okay, and I know a lot of people are going to say some slick shit about this because it is what it is. And 30 years ago, by the way, for a 3-bedroom in New York City that was non-public housing, you would only pay literally $250. 30 years ago, when this album dropped. Now, for a studio, the average studio is renting for let me take that back. The average studio rents for $2,000. Average. If you want a 3-bedroom in New York City, you better cough up $3,000 a month. It's ridiculous. And it's all because they wanted to elevate New York and drive people out like Mary J. Blige out of the cities. And funny thing is, nobody can really pay it. And we need to go back, in my opinion, to 30 years ago. Because if we don't, not just in New York City, but all these cities is basically going to crumble. The housing market is bursting because nobody has the money to pay this. And so I just really love that time. I love the album. And that's the 411 on this commentary. And I listened to it today and it still sounds fresh and brand new, just like it did yesterday. So with that being said, it's your girl, Miss Little. I'm signing off. I told y'all it would be kind of long, but please listen, share, and comment, and like. And if you already haven't, please subscribe to this channel and also hit the notification bell to receive future notices on various commentaries, lives, and reviews that I do. Thank you and have a wonderful day.